Good morning. Good morning. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
All right. Wow, this is amazing. Pardon me while I do a bit of setup here. As is the case with directors, I brought props. No, I really didn't bring props. I brought some pieces that mean a lot to me in terms of my journey of faith, and wanted to share them with you today. I have to tell you guys, I'm going to be very, very, very real with you. I have been researching as much as I could William Jessup, and what has been a great source of inspiration and a great source of hope and even a source of intimidation has been watching your video feeds of chapel. I can tell you right now, nothing I have to say to you today is going to be new in that true ecclesiastical sensibility. Nothing I have to say to you today is going to be utterly profound or new, because you're experiencing it now if you're walking with Christ. You're in it. And if you haven't experienced it yet, you will experience it. And I just trust that, because I feel to my bones that the Spirit of the living God is here in this place with all of you. And that is meaningful for a person who has been engaging with college students now for the better part, I would say, of the last 14 years in ministry, in teaching. I had the great opportunity of actually being part-time faculty at Azusa Pacific University, where Daniel and I were students, and Alyssa as well. I know Alyssa's with us in spirit. She's in Africa. I just have to tell you guys this too, that my love and this intense love that I feel for all of you is mysterious on one hand, because I've never met y'all, never been on this campus with students here. I visited at some point in off term, I think last year with Daniel. But I have just been bowled over by the witness and the testimony from you students, but then also the witness and the testimony of the people that have been coming in to speak to you and have been moved by the presence of Jesus in this place. So it is a great honor and a great privilege for me to be here with you today to just share with you a little bit about the journey of faith in my life. Would you guys do this for me? I'm going to ask you to do a wacky theater acting thing. Is that okay with all of you? Okay, are you up for it this morning? Yeah? Someone's like, yes, 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 yes. Okay, so really quickly, and it's a centering exercise. I won't get into all of centering, but if you know something about even centering prayer and contemplation, meditating on and with the Spirit of God, this is actually what actors are doing. They don't realize that, but this is really what this is about. So let's do this together. Everybody just where you are, it's a breathing exercise. Will you just sort of sit with your legs planted, backs against the chair, without talking, right? Here's what we're gonna do. You're gonna close your eyes. You're gonna close your eyes. The first thing you're gonna do is trust the process. That's probably the hardest part. The second thing you're going to do is, on my cue, we're going to inhale for 5 seconds, then we're going to exhale for 10 seconds. One more time, I'm going to inhale for 5 seconds and exhale for 10 seconds. Just let your mind quiet. Let the energy in your mind drop to your heart. Here we go. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Breathe normally. Slowly come back to me. So open your eyes, slowly come back to me. Show of hands. Who had a hard time either inhaling for 5 seconds or exhaling for 10 seconds? Yep. All right. Here's what we know. Two shades to this little discovery, guys. On a scientific level, because what I'm studying right now is actually recovery for trauma victims. So this is a little bit of neurobiology just to kind of toss out there in this conversation today. Daniel mentioned that I've had a lot of illness in my life. And so that's the spirit in which I want to give this and offer this to you. If you experience difficulty inhaling for 5 seconds and exhaling for 10 seconds, you are currently in this present moment experiencing stress. Stress of some kind. Now I realize it's 3 weeks to the end of the semester, right? And it is the morning, right? And so you may have only slept for 3 hours last night. I remember how it goes. So do I expect you all to be experiencing stress as a college student on this campus? Yes. But it is also 10 a.m. on a Friday. It's the morning, the beginning of your day, and you have entered a space where we're hoping to hear from the Lord, and you are entering with stress. I just kind of want to let that permeate for a minute. At the beginning of your day, and you still have a long way to go, you're entering into your day with stress. What I am hoping that you experience here in this moment today, if for no other reason for the next 15 minutes, is a moment of sacred rest, to just encounter the Spirit of the living God in such a way that even for a moment out of your day, you are able to rest in the assuredness that He has you. And not just that, but that His grace is sufficient. Simple truths, right? I told you, simple truths, you already know, right? So in this theme of going deeper, it's left to you to take it deeper. But just think about that. And this is an exercise you guys can do at any point in your day. And let me tell you this, when you start to practice in that space of breath, you actually adjust the brain. This is coming from a journey of, for the last 4 years, I've had to try to rehabilitate my lungs. 4 years ago, I was in the emergency room in Huntington Hospital in Pasadena, California, in tachycardia, in the emergency room because I could not breathe. And still to this day, they're not entirely sure why my body just shut down. But I will never forget that moment, nor the journey of the last 4 years. And that's only one chapter in a long, extended book of a life lived in brokenness and suffering. So every breath that I breathe is a gift from God, truly. I mean, it says it in the Word, and I think we know that to be true cognitively, but do you know it in your heart? Has it deepened into the furnace of your soul? So now I can actually breathe. Inhale, 10 seconds. Exhale, 18 seconds. No joke, that's my new way of breathing. But I have to work at it. I have to get there. I have to believe intrinsically in every cell of my being, every fiber of my being, that guess what? The grace of God is sufficient in all things. Here's another piece of that puzzle. Could we have that slide of 2 Corinthians up? Thanks, guys. This is the scripture reference for today, right? I've already mentioned it. I'd love for us to just take a second to meditate together, collectively. What we're going to do is actually take just my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. We all know this verse, right? At some point it was taught in multiple Sunday schools, probably, or from the pulpit in many ways. What if we were to just do a quick exercise in Lectio Divina together, just to meditate on that one sentence, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. And here's how I'd like to do it, guys. It's a call and response. As we move into just a moment to pray, because I haven't done that yet, and I would like to do that, let this be the preamble to the prayer. I'm going to actually lead you in the recitation of this piece. But rather than you saying my, would you guys say the word your? Does that make sense? So, and I'm going to lead us in a reduction of this verse. Just follow me. Again, director, do you mind following me? Is that okay? Okay, here we go. Ready? My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. You go. My grace is sufficient, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Let's try that again with more conviction, guys. Ready? Here we go. My grace is sufficient for you. For my power is made perfect in weakness. All right, here we go again. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect. You go. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power. My grace is sufficient for you. My grace. My grace. My. Yours. Yours. At the end of the day, grace is sufficient because it comes from who? Yeah. The broken journey. That's what this is all about. I want to read you guys something really quickly. Because, yes, as a director, people often ask me, and as an artist, you've done so many things, blah, 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 blah. They always want to know about the juicy stuff. That isn't what I'm going to be talking about today. Because really what this journey has been about is about that verse. My grace is sufficient. There is no reason, guys, that I should have had the opportunities that I've had. There is no reason why I should have been doing the work that I was doing. For two reasons. One, I really shouldn't have lived past the age of 14. I really shouldn't have lived past the age of 25. And I really shouldn't have lived past the age of 32. Those are the three encounters in my life where I really did stare death in the face. So I shouldn't even be here. That's the first part of it. The second part of it is I was an English major and a music major. I had no business going into Hollywood. None whatsoever. And thirdly, and probably even more importantly than the other two, I didn't want to go. I was so Jonah in this journey. Guys, I can't even stress that enough. And your lovely chapel director, Daniel got sort of a first row seat of that journey because it all happened and it all began at APU and it all happened and transpired and developed. That journey really was instigated by our time in chapel programs together at APU. Crazy, crazy, crazy. I should never have had the last 14 years of my career. Not at all. And at the end of the day, it has been a broken down, ugly, and yet beautiful journey because it has been a lesson in, again, the grace of God being sufficient enough to provide me with not just favor, but life. Life in the midst of death. Light in the midst of darkness. I was thinking so much about the parallels and the bookends that this moment brings me to. So again, like I said, the journey began in chapel programs at APU with Daniel Gluck. Yeah, Daniel and Alyssa were engaged when we were in chapel programs together. And Alyssa was actually one of my altos. I was a section leader in University Choir and Orchestra and in small group. And she was actually one of my girls. So I feel like a guest in their home while I'm here with you all today and have such an amazing love for you by way of them. But it made me remember, at the end of the day, I kept thinking, what is it, God, that you want your children to know? What truth is it that you desire for them to know? And the only thing that kept coming to mind is tell them that my love and my grace and my mercy is enough. It is enough. And I quite literally fell asleep last night, you guys, at 4 a.m. in the morning, mumbling that over and over again, still questioning whether or not that was enough of a message. But like I said, I have to trust that the Spirit of God is here and that the true work is not with me, it's with Him between him and you. Here is what I do remember and what I do recall about what it meant to be in my early 20s and transitioning from a student to a new worker and into my vocational career and calling. I wrote this out several years ago after meeting with a series of recent graduates from the university. See if this kind of lands on you. We need to know that we matter, that we have purpose and a reason for existing. A parent's explanation or a friend's kind word is not enough. There must be a visceral understanding of one's existence. When we start to feel our purpose wane, when we begin to doubt the process, when we question others' responses or needs in direct correlation with our own, we begin a descent. Purpose. It feels like such a rudimentary concept, and yet it bears such fundamental weight that I think we often lose sense of its prevailing heaviness. You get used to carrying that load of knowing that it's a burden you must shoulder. Then seemingly all at once you find yourself stumbling from the toil, the labor, the exhaustion of having to nourish, to coddle, to serve this thing. In every conversation I have with people in their early 20s, I am reminded of this struggle. Purpose, validity, the need to know that you're meeting your full potential seems overwhelmingly important. And most of the time, there is this freezing that begins to take place. It's too daunting. We fear failure, disappointment, wasted time and money. Fear, of course, becomes paralysis. I get it. I've been there. I go back there frequently. I wish there was a way to confidently reassure these young people that they won't become frostbitten in the process. You will survive. The most effective weaponry you can have is knowing where your purpose lies. That's actually the most important thing. Purpose. Who gives us purpose? Who gives us calling? When I mentioned, again, that transition, I spent 5 years, you guys, studying to be a collegiate professor. That was my hope. That was the trajectory. I was going to go and teach English and music theory and get a doctorate and do the whole 9 yards. That was the course that I was on, and I had invested tens of thousands of dollars, right, into that education. When all of a sudden, after a particular summer spent taking a 200-level acting class at APU, which I did not anticipate taking, it was literally the only GE that was offered in the summer, out of that class came this project, this one-woman piece, this 40-minute monologue that basically told the story of my testimony of faith, about what it was like to be a child who, for the first 13 years of her life, had a disfiguring skin disease. What was it like to be a child monster whose face was distorted, who was often ridiculed more by adults than children? Could God still speak and move in that girl's life? Could he still purpose her story for meaning? That was what this piece was about. I never expected for that piece to be commissioned, so to speak, by the university for school-wide chapel, but it was that next year, which was how I ended up coming into chapel programs the following year. That started this journey of great mystery for me. I had these professors in English and music say to me, Naisa, I think that you're actually meant to go into this. Can you guys imagine that? It's not just people around you within the space of this one acting class, but it's professors in English and music who are now telling you essentially what you've been doing. It's really about this thing. This is where you should be headed. I was so confused. As I started to research and to really talk about what it would mean to work within the entertainment industry, I was so discouraged and so downtrodden, and that sense of freezing, that sense of panic, overwhelmed me. I didn't know if it was possible. Is there life in Hollywood? Really, truly. Not just that. Not just that, but I had no foundation. I didn't know what it would mean to work in Hollywood, and how does one break into it? How does that work? My grace is sufficient. I don't think that it is mystery then that after 3 months of applying to places, I decided, you know what, I should probably get a feel for what this whole thing is about. And so I called a dear friend who was working at a show called Drew Carey, which was a show on ABC many years ago. And I knew that he was working in production, and I just asked him, may I just shadow you for a day? I just love to see what it's all about, because I don't know what I'm getting myself into. And Glenn said, yeah, sure, come and just shadow, and we'll have you meet some people. And I said, it's really not about that. I would love to just learn from you. And so we went in to meet with his team, just to kind of chat through what was expected of a production assistant. You guys, I had $2.50 left in my checking account. I had a negative balance that I had to be accountable for in my savings account. I had enough cash to get me to Warner Brothers. That was it. At this point, I didn't know how I was going to meet rent. I didn't know how I was going to basically buy food for the next week. And yet, I was solidly on this trek. This is after, again, months of being in this Jonah headset. I finally had graduated into the space of being Moses to say, okay, God, I don't know how, but I'm going to walk down this mountain, and I'm going to go speak to the people. And I trust that you will open those doors, and I trust that you are enough. So the crazy thing is that Glenn had me come and talk with Jay, his producer. And we were sitting there, and Jay was looking at my CV, my resume at the time, and he said, why did you want to get into the business? Just to be quite frank, with all of this skill set, why do you want to go into Hollywood? You could do so many other things. I thought, well, that's not a great way to start the conversation. Okay, so I tell him, I say, I really don't know, Jay, why, other than I feel as if I'm being called to serve your community. Let's be very honest. The only thing I could tell him was the truth, a man that I was pretty sure didn't know God and wouldn't know the vernacular, and yet I said, well, what can I say? I can only speak the truth, and so the truth was, I'm willing to serve your community. I'm ready to serve your community. It was interesting. Jay said, okay, Naisa, you know, there are a couple of shows that are looking for some production assistants. So why don't you go ahead and fax off your resume to a couple of places. So I was in the fax and copy room, and to make a long story short, Glenn comes in and he says, Naisa, you have a call on line 2. You didn't give this number out to anybody, did you? And I said, I don't even know your production office number. Glenn, no, I did not give your number to anybody, I promise. He's like, well, it's somebody from Paramount Pictures, and you should pick up the phone. So I was like, okay. So I pick up the phone, and this woman says to me, Naisa, my name is Dina Waxman. I'm the assistant to the producer at Becker at Paramount Pictures. We hear you're looking for a job. Could you get over the hill in the next 30 minutes to come for an interview? I didn't even know what the hill was. So I was like, can I? I'm not sure. She's like, no, you know what? Let's just do it tomorrow morning. Come to Paramount tomorrow morning. There will be, your name will be at the gate. So here's the crazy thing. The story goes that I got that job. I won't get into the rest of that, except for this one detail. 3.5 weeks into the job, I was sitting with Dina at lunch, and I said to her, Dina, I really just need to know, how did you get my name and number? How did you know that I was at Drew Carey that day? It still remains this great mystery to me. And she said, oh, well, Naisa, my best friend, is the associate producer at Drew Carey, and she actually sits across from Jay over the wall. Her door was open, and she was listening to your story as you were speaking to Jay. And she said, there's this girl that's here. I don't know who she is, but she sounds like a good kid. You should interview her. Crazy. And the entire extent of my 14-year career is built on a bunch of crazies like that, you guys. Doors and windows opening for a person that really had no business being there in the first place. And the only skill set that she truly had to offer was one of grace, love, mercy, and servitude. That's it. And that is what I have been doing for the course of the last 14 years of my career, wherever God has taken me. Broken journey, guys. So the pots. I don't know about you, and by the way, I love both of these pots. So know that I love both of them. I'm not trying to insinuate that one is better than the other, but I will say this, that I think oftentimes, I know for myself, in the journey of life, especially here in this country, in this set of politics in which we live, this is what we're encouraged to strive for. And yet, this is the life of faith. I don't know if you guys can see that. I think there's a slide somewhere, but I think you get it, right? You can see it through the cameras. This pot that I bought because I heard a woman say to her daughter, "That is the ugliest thing I have ever seen, truly. Why would anybody want to buy it?" Which is obviously my life signature. That is my life. Why would anybody want this person? How could this person be useful? Am I redeemable? Yes. Because I think this pot, more than anything, shows us, again, it's a reminder that life is a work in progress. This pot that has actually been kindled and fired in the midst of its process, where the cracks and the grooves and the mistakes are all apparent, is the story of faith and the faithful walk. My grace is sufficient, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Are you living in that truth today? Are you willing to abide with that truth? I hope so, because the unexpected journey, the broken journey, you guys, is one that is rich with the intimate love of God. And I pray that for you today. Let's pray together right now, shall we? Father, I think it's so easy to misappropriate our human expectation for hope. And yet true hope resides in what we cannot see, something we cannot expect. It's something we cannot know fully. What are we striving for, God? Is our striving something that is hedged in the doing, in a role, in a title, in a degree? Or God, are we striving to be more like your Son, to live in accordance by your love, to live in the midst of grace, to allow your Holy Spirit to be the grand weaver of all of the loose threads? I think so often, God, we get lost in the minutia of having to do when all you're asking us to really do is be. You just desire for us to be with you, to trust you. And that journey, God, I know is one that is marked often by great suffering and great pain and great turmoil. So God, for whoever is in the midst of that now, I ask that you would bring them holy rest, Lord. I know that what I have said today, God, is not new and not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, and yet I pray that the work of your Spirit would go with these students, would be with them, would continue to do its work in them and in their hearts. I thank you so much for this opportunity, God. For all that has been said and for all that will happen, I just give you praise and glory. In the name of your Son, Jesus, we do pray. Amen. Thank you.